Enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry, consultant, so inspiring, pushing you to your dreams.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of 60 Minutes With. I'm your host, Crystal Petry. On today's episode, I have Ava Graves. She is the Democratic Chair of Jefferson County, Texas, and she is here to educate all of us about the Democratic Party now and the future of the Democratic Party as she sees it. Welcome to the show, Ms. Graves.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast and really to just educate us about the Democratic Party. And I think everyone is hearing about the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. It's everywhere. It's social media, it's TV, it's radio. Mm-hmm. You can't escape it, I feel like.
Well, let me do my disclaimer up front.
Okay,
I am
please.
still learning the Democratic Party as well,
Mm-hmm.
the whole political process. What I resonate with, there are relationships and doing the right thing. So I hope that I want to put everybody on notice. I'm not an expert.
Okay.
I can only share from my experience, strength, and hope. And the rest we can Google or talk to more qualified people. So.
And really, I don't think anyone is an expert when it comes to politics.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to just educate yourself on the process. And I was looking at your sign, it says 99% of politics is just showing up. Mm-hmm. And that's really the case. No one's an expert. We got to show up, we got to educate ourselves, we got to read and see where it takes us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, so can you tell me what is the mission of the Democratic Party?
The mission of the Democratic Party, from my perspective, is to create an avenue for people to be taken care of, to create policies and legislature that speaks to the human condition.
Perfect. And why is the Democratic Party considered the grassroots party?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know why it's considered the grassroots, but what I can say is that the Democratic Party is relational and it is community based, and it reaches beyond economic, social statuses.
Now, I know you spoke earlier about the Democratic Party being about relationships and helping people within a community. Can you give me some examples of what are the social issues that the Democratic Party advocate for?
For me, the Democratic Party represents human kindness. Okay. It represents taking care of everyone. It represents equal opportunities available, but also ways to circumvent the system when it's not equal for a particular sect or community.
And what would you say is the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party?
Well, I will say for the Democratic Party, we focus on social justice.
Okay.
We focus on making sure that everyone has basic needs. Being able to feed their families, being able to have a living wage, being able to afford to go to work, and being able to afford to feed your family, and even have just a little something left over for maybe a movie or
Yes.
a special treat.
Mm-hmm. And what about the Republican Party?
I don't speak to the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. I'm not part of that system. What I appreciate about the Democratic Party is that we are not a myopic party. We have from the most conservative to the most liberal and everyone in between. And that's that's the beauty of the Democratic Party for me. It's also the challenge of the Democratic Party, because we have so much freedom of expression, freedom of beliefs, which is our rights as far as the Constitution is. And so sometimes within our party we can have challenges of what's the next thing to do, what's the most pressing issue at the time. So I appreciate that about the Democratic Party. It's not just for one particular economic status, it's for all people. And within the Democratic Party, I believe that we fight for all of those, from the most conservative beliefs to the most liberal beliefs, and how do we mill that together to create lifestyles that that are compassionate for all humankind.
In 1850 or around that time, the Democratic Party as we know it now and the Republican Party as we know it now kind of became the two major dominant political parties. And that was in 1850. Do you feel like in this time that a two-party system still serves the citizens the best?
Well, I think that's a question that's better suited for someone who has more historical, political savvy in how those types of systems work. For me, the Democratic Party is the party for all people. I believe that in our human condition, we all want the same thing. We just have different ways of achieving it. For instance, there's many ways to get to this headquarters. You can come from I-10, or you can come from MLK, or you can come from the side street, or you can come straight on from 6th Street. And it's just, but you still get to the same spot. And that's the way I see politics, is we really all want the basic same things for our family, for our friend, for our community, for our nation. And just which route do we take to get there?
Absolutely, that's a great analogy.
Thank you.
Now, let me read you some information and then I'll follow that with a question. After the 1964 Civil Rights Act, many white conservative Southern Democrats became Republicans, and the Republicans at that time became Democrats. Do you think that we will ever see a swap, if you will, of that magnitude again, where we have just about a whole party of the Democrats switch over to Republicans, and just about an entire party of the Republicans switch over to the Democrats? You think we'll see something like that again?
Well, this reputed switch that you're speaking of, in life, things are secular.
Absolutely.
And that's based on numerous variables and factors. So who's to say?
According to a CNN poll report, Black voters form the core of the Democratic Party base. They cast ballots for Democrats in greater proportion than pretty much any other demographic group. Without the massive backing of Black voters, the last three Democratic nominees, President Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and President Barack Obama, would not have made it to the general election. Yet recent polling suggests the advantage Democrats have had with Black voters may be slipping. Why do you think Black voters are slipping away from the Democratic Party?
Well, if I recall correctly, all three of those presidents, all three of those folks got the popular vote.
They did.
So to me, that's what really matters. When people are voting a certain way, that means that they feel that that's where their needs are getting met. And it's as simple as that.
Now, Black voters have been a major part of the Democratic Party for decades, but there are some reports that I've read doing research for this interview that a lot of Black voters feel that maybe their needs are being met, but possibly not as quickly as they would want them to be. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, the beautiful thing about America is that you can choose. And you can change your mind and you can choose again.
Okay. Now, you are, as I stated before, the Jefferson County Democratic Chair, so congratulations on that.
It's my third term.
So it is safe to assume, and I just want to put this out here for all my viewers and listeners, that you are a registered Democrat.
So in the state of Texas, you don't have to register parties.
Okay.
You just vote what you vote. But I am a Democrat. I have voted Democrat for numerous years. I became aware or engaged in politics very late in life. And so from the time I started voting, I voted Democrat.
What are your roles and responsibilities as the Jefferson County, Texas Democratic Chair?
Well, as Matthew, who came to set up the camera, saw earlier, vacuuming, dusting, making the coffee, but a lot of administrative duties, working in tandem with the Secretary of State, the County Clerk's Office, the Tax Assessor's Office, to make sure that we have the proper procedures in place for executing the primary and general election, making sure that election laws are being followed, making sure that we have enough people to work the polls, the early voting ballot board, the signature verification board. Each party gets to choose those folks to participate in it. My role also is to identify future leaders. I also chair the County Executive Committee meeting. That is the body of the precinct chairs who serve our precincts. So I chair that meeting and work in tandem with the precinct chairs to get out the vote, to raise funds, to retain quality elected officials, and to recruit quality candidates.
Is your position an elected position?
Yes, it is an elected position. It's every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Mhm.
Are there term limits for your position?
No, there are not.
So it could just be continuous as long as you receive the votes?
Yes,
And it's 2-year terms?
2-year terms.
2-year terms,
Mhm.
okay. So tell me about Miss Ava Graves' upbringing.
So when you say upbringing, what do you mean exactly?
Like growing up, your
Growing
mom, your dad, siblings,
Mhm.
friends, school, college.
So, I am the daughter of Lula Mae and Ben Rhodes.
Okay.
He's my birth father. I had the privilege of having a bonus father, the late Dr. Ralph Butler. There were 5 girls and 1 boy in my family.
Wow,
We have a
okay.
sister that is deceased.
Mhm.
And there's a 10-year gap between the first set of kids and the younger set of kids. So I feel like my younger siblings are my babies. And the first 3 girls were stair-steppers. We were very, very close. We were tightly bonded. We would grow in our home. We fought like other sisters, but out publicly we always had each other's back. We never let anyone harm the other. And so very fond memories of growing up. Had beautiful relationships with my aunt and uncles. When the second set of kids came along, it was such a unique experience. I was in 6th grade, and then through high school to have these younger siblings and now seeing them with their children. I was born in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
We moved to Norman, Oklahoma when I was in the 6th grade for my bonus dad to achieve his doctoral degree in psychology. Then we went back to Tennessee State in Nashville, and then we moved from Tennessee State to Texas Southern, which from high school forward is where I have lived. I married a United Methodist pastor, fast forward many years ago, and we were part of the United Methodist conferences. They appoint you to churches, and we had a privilege to be appointed to Southeast Texas and have fallen in
Wow.
love. We've been here for
Yes.
14 years. My husband, a recently retired pastor, and so we love Southeast Texas. It's been an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful that we were led this way.
So not only am I talking to the Jefferson County, Texas Democratic Chair, I'm also talking to a First Lady.
A retired First Lady. My husband is retired. We call it rewirement. So now he can go and
Okay.
enjoy the things that he probably didn't get a chance to do much of, like his writing and editing and things of that nature that take time. But when you're the pastor of a church, that's a 24/7 call.
So I've heard.
And we're humble and grateful to live that lifestyle for so many years.
Well, congratulations to both of you on
Thank you.
retirement.
Well, I'm not retired yet. My term ends 21 days after the March 2024 primary.
Okay.
So-
Are you going
so-
to retire? You're not going to step down, are you?
Well, it's an elected term,
Mm-hmm.
so it's every 2 years, so there will be an election for the next chair.
Okay.
And no, I don't plan on running again.
Okay. Is that breaking news here on the podcast?
No. When I was elected for the third time,
Uh-huh.
on that night, I let everyone know, let's start looking for our chair.
Okay.
Let's start looking for a chair. We always have to be looking many elections down the road. We need to always be creating leadership. We need to include younger folks who show compassion and leadership within the community. Not necessarily a political person. I was not a political person. I did not seek out to become the chair of Jefferson County Democratic Party. I am a person of service and relationships. And so when I moved to Southeast Texas, I was looking for girlfriends. But one of the things that worked in my favor is that my dear friend Bill White was running for governor of Texas when we moved to Beaumont. So I volunteered on his campaign here in Beaumont in Southeast Texas, and that's how I began to make friends. And so the narrative for the community became, oh, she's political, let's ask Ava to do it. So I'm more of like setting an atmosphere. Let's set the room up, let's have refreshments, let's care for people while everybody's working and while people are on their campaign. What do I need to do to help them to be successful? That was always my role. I was a precinct chair for my precinct 14, before I became the party chair. My first term, I filled the unexpired term of Kay Burnson, who stepped down. The county executive committee voted me in to fulfill that unexpired term, and then Joseph Trahan ran that race. He and I ran for that seat, and he won. And so I returned to being a precinct chair. I got up under his leadership and made sure that I aligned myself with his vision and his goals for the community. And then he stepped down to run for state representative, and the county executive committee elected me once again to fill his unexpired term. And then, since we did not have anyone running on the ballot for county chair, the state party chair, the rules state that the state party chair calls a special meeting so that the executive committee can elect a new chair. And so I put my name in the hat for that third term to fill for that full term, along with another person, and I was elected executive committee with 82% of the vote.
Wow.
So when we think about the executive committee, which is made up of precinct chairs, presently we have 39 precinct chairs and 5 precinct captains, which is a record for us here in Jefferson County. Those precinct chairs represent thousands of voters.
Wow.
So they're
Okay.
speaking for the voice of their precinct. Some precincts have as many as 2,500 voters, Democrats in that precinct. Others have fewer numbers, but those precinct chairs represent that constituency. They are the voice. That's the grassroots. They're the people who go out and knock on the doors and make them phone calls and make sure that they're educating the voters and things like that. So when people say, well, I don't remember voting for you, Ava, I would say, well, your representative voted.
Yes.
Your voice for the community voted.
So indirectly, they voted.
Indirectly. So when you're a precinct chair, you stand for that, the Democratic voters in that precinct. You're that voice. And in this election for this full term, 82% of that vote I received, and I'm very humbled and excited about that.
As you
Yes.
should be. That's almost unheard of.
And I am the first African-American female to be elected to the state party, to the Jefferson County chair.
Okay, so let me get this right. I'm speaking to the Jefferson County, Texas Democratic Chair, a First Lady, and a history maker.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
I am humbled.
It's
I'm
you know, it's all
humbled.
God, it's all community, it's all relationships, and it's nothing that I sought out And what I tell people is, have an open mind and an open heart, because you never know where your journey will lead you. And sometimes people see in you what you don't see in yourself. And so just have an open heart. Yeah.
The precinct chair, let me ask this question really, really quick. Are those elected officials?
They
How do
are.
they?
They
Oh,
are
okay.
elected every 2 years as the chair. The precinct chairs are elected. In fact, the filing for precinct chairs starts on September the 12th.
Okay.
Precinct chairs are able to download their applications off of the Secretary of State website, or they can come by here and pick up, sign their application to run on the ballot. If the precinct chair is not challenged, they automatically become that chair, so their name won't be on the ballot. But if the precinct chair has an opponent, which we did a couple of years ago, we had 2 precinct chairs that were challenged for their precinct, so those names were on the ballot.
Okay.
And so it's whoever gets the most votes.
Right, right. Okay. So the precinct chair, that would be on maybe, is it the November ballots or the May ballots whenever we have the elections? Do you know?
So that is on I think the precinct chairs are in the primary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I better double check that. That's a good question. I know that somewhere in my notes, but
Yes.
yeah. Well, I think so, because I know for the county chairs, both parties, after the primary, whoever wins the precinct chair in the primary, unless there's a runoff, is the chair. So there's no further election process for the chair. The chair then gets busy facilitating the general election.
Right. When were you introduced or made aware of the Democratic Party?
I think as a young woman, I believe in my family, when I became aware, most people were voting Democrat in my family. Yeah, and my involvement actually came actively, I want to say, with Mayor, when Bill White ran for mayor in Houston, and then of course Barack Obama. We lived in Pearland during his first election, and we were so excited. We had young campaign workers for Barack Obama come down from Iowa and Ohio and stay with us in our home for a week or 2
Really?
to help get out the vote. So we felt like real 70-ish, you know, like like the sit-ins and the powwows, and so these
Yes.
young campaign workers came, and this was on the brink of when technology was getting really big in the voting process. And so it was just really just a refreshing opportunity to meet these kids from every background, every ethnicity, to hear their excitement about the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how did they find out that, okay, we could come and live with the Graves? Did you put something on the internet, or how did that work?
At the campaign headquarters, there's always messaging going around of needs, and there was a need expressed that they were having people come from other states to help push out the vote, and needed places to stay.
Okay.
And so we had 2 extra bedrooms, and we opened up our home, and it was really a very unique experience.
Oh my goodness.
And I feel like we were such a great part of history,
Yes.
participating in that. Of course, President Obama won that first term, and it was very exciting. I lived in Pearland at the time, and to see the turnout in Pearland with all of that excitement for President Obama. Back then, after the general election, you automatically formed your precinct caucuses, where everybody got together in their precinct, and then they elect their state delegates. Well, it's not done that way now, but I remember that night I worked the polls in Pearland at one of the high schools, and then everybody showed up for the caucus. And all this was so new to me, and it was just a mass amount of people. No one knew what to do and going around. So I just got everybody lined up and, follow this route. And it was just, when I look back on that, I was like, wow, well, how did, those people didn't know me and they were listening to me. It was like, this line please, you go there, and just the organization of it. Because sometimes when we're in places, we're looking for somebody just to give us some direction.
Exactly.
So we'll know how to maximize our time. And so that was a very unique experience. But again, there was nothing in my head to say I want to be on a political leadership role or anything like that. I'm a person of service and organization, and I love people. And relationships are very important to me.
What about the Democratic Party has made you choose to stay part of that party and choose to continue your service within that party?
We are the voice for the voiceless. We are the voice for the human condition. Whether we're the most prominent, successful, no financial worry, no lifestyle worry person, there's still some brokenness in us.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly if we are on the end of the spectrum where we're struggling, we can't get our kids fed or to school, or the streets we live on aren't good enough to even, or safe enough to even walk outside, or I'm not talking about violence, I'm just talking about regular safety, potholes and things like that. In the human condition, there's a need for connection and a need for healing. I don't believe that we arrive, that we're there. We have moments of splendor, but there's also pain. You can't live in the human condition and not have some form of pain. And I feel that the Democratic Party is very compassionate and caring about people's pain. I feel that when we talk about fair taxation, we're saying we understand that there are people who don't have the privileges or the access that others have. So how do we bridge that gap? And when we talk about the Christian faith, are we not our brother's keeper? What does compassion look like? How does that play out? If there's someone in need, what does that look like? Why is that a social term, or why is that a party thing if someone has a need? I recall when my niece was about maybe 4 years old, and she was sitting in the back seat of my car. She couldn't even see over the window sill, and someone came up to the window and they were asking for something, and they were knocking on the window, and this little girl says to me, "Aunt Ava, give him something. He's asking for something." And I said, "Jess, I don't have anything. Jessica, I don't have it." "You don't have just a penny?" Now, she knew that money was a medium to getting your needs met. She didn't know that a penny wouldn't go a long way, but just her heart tug, like, just give him something. And then my great niece, a few years later on, was riding in my car, and she would pack snacks and water whenever we would go anywhere. And I'd say, "Alex, what's all this food for?" She goes, "Well, I know somebody's going to need something on Ava." Wow. So if our little children know this at a young age, it's intrinsic in us to want to give. But we get caught up in this mindset of scarcity. There's not going to be enough. There's not going to be enough. We live in the greatest country, the most powerful country in the world. We tout that. We're proud of that. Yet we don't. There's issues about feeding the hungry. There's issues about women's health. There's issues about freedom of choice, and it's upside down. And what I believe in the Democratic Party is everybody has a voice. In the African culture, they have something that's called Ibutu. I am because you are.
Oh, wow.
And there is, when we think about are we our brother's keeper, there's a video that went around several years ago, and it still floats around. Someone went into this African community, and they said to the kids, whoever gets to that candy first can have it. So those kids got in a circle, put their arms around each other, and they all walked together to get that candy so that everybody could get a piece of candy. It wasn't a competition. It was I am because you are. Together we can. And I think that gets lost. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. You know, I grew up with 5 girls and 1 boy in my home, and so we're constantly fighting over something. And my mom would always say, there's enough. You'll get enough. You'll have what you need. And everybody's enough is not the same. So I have a girlfriend, she eats very light, and she's satisfied. Me, I want more, more, more. You know, so my enough and her enough are different. So we are our brother's keepers. How can we have joy when other people are in pain? How can we look at what does compassion look like? And that's not a political issue. That's not a Republican or a Democratic Party issue. That's a human issue. So I like to connect with with the platform that's more likely to choose humankind over things and stuff. When I had my first job as a waitress, the hourly pay was $2.25, and they said to me, well, you get tips. Well, I work for you, and you're only paying me $2.25 an hour, and then I have to pay taxes on that, and then out of my tip I have to pay the busboy and the chef and all of that. So I even as a young waitress, not politically involved, I thought something is not right with that picture. What if you're just having your meal and you can't afford to tip? Or what if I had an off day and I wasn't the best and you don't tip me? So I just think that there's so many things that we don't pay attention to that impact all of us. So when we think about our college students coming out of college, why is education causing our kids to come out of college in debt? Unless they get scholarships or special, their parents can pay for it or what. College is, I might be rambling right now, but what I'm saying is I believe that there's more than enough in the United States of America, that no one should be hungry, that no one should not have health care, that everyone should be cared for. I believe in this powerful, beautiful country of ours, which at one time did not even recognize my race as a human race, that did not change that in the Constitution for a very, very long time. That when I was a little girl, I'm 67 years old, when I was a little girl, my mother had just gotten the right to vote, and here we are again fighting for voters' rights. So there's so many things, and I think when people are driven by fear and greed, that we get clouded view. When we have people that can pay enough taxes for all of us that pay no taxes or little taxes, I think that's absurd. I remember trying to get credit, and my interest rate was like 14%, and someone with good credit was like 7%. Make that make sense for me. But as a young girl, not being aware, I didn't question it. I just thought, well, we're always going to be just stuck because, how are you going to get ahead? Right. So there's systems in place that are designed for the demise of a certain sect of people, economic, social, financially. And there's systems that's designed for the success of a certain sect of people, that they can continue to get rich, continue to hold on to everything that they got, continue to work people to their bones. How can a company have workers who cannot afford to pay their rent or their child care or make a decision between groceries and medical care? How can that be compassionate? How can that be love? How can we say we love our brother and we don't care for our brother? Now, I'm not sitting here like a great saint. There's many days when somebody knocks on my window, I'm like, well, don't let him, I'll put my glasses on. You know, we all have our moments.
Yes.
But overall, I think when we come together, we're so much stronger. I have friends that are across the aisle who I think are really wonderful people. And I don't understand how, especially for women who vote against themselves, like how can you align with someone that tells you what you should do with your body? My thing is, hey, let's start a movement and get legislation that men who aren't planning to have children should have a reversible vasectomy, sign a document, and then, you know, when they can have sex, and if they get someone pregnant, and weren't planning on having children, that they have to automatically pay child support. Something that tells them what to do with their body, like they're telling us to do with our body. That wouldn't fly.
It would not.
It would not, absolutely would not fly. If I tell you, a woman can only get pregnant like once
a
year. Can impregnate 365 or more women.
Yes.
Yes. A year. They can do that. So therein lies the challenge. So why tell me? Don't tell me you're pro-life when you don't care about the people after they get here.
You're anti-abortion with that, you know. And, you know, as you were talking about the vasectomies, I just saw a shirt and it just made me giggle. The shirt said, vasectomies prevent abortion. And it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. So let's get back to Jefferson County here, Jefferson County, Texas. Jefferson County recently switched over and became a red county.
Where did you get that? That is false information.
Is that false information?
That is definitely false information.
Okay, so the information that I researched stated that Jefferson County is now a red county and not a blue county anymore.
So in the last election,
right,
when 46 was elected, what's that guy's name? The one who
President Trump.
That criminal one. When he was elected, Jefferson County did vote for him. But out of the 40 elected positions in Jefferson County, Democrats hold 24 of those seats.
Okay.
So we are not a red county. There was no red wave as everybody thought, not even across the country in this last election. Okay. We are challenged. There is room for growth. We might maybe be a little purple, but this is not a red county.
And that leads me to my next question. A lot of people feel like Texas would be served or better served as a purple county, as you just stated, meaning that a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, we all come together. What do you think about a purple state? Excuse me, I said county earlier, but a purple state of Texas.
So I don't look, what I'd like for Texas is, let's stop being at the bottom of everything. Let's stop being at the bottom of healthcare. Let's stop being at the bottom of education. Let's stop being at the bottom of the economy. Let's stop being at the bottom. This is a rich state. We have so many natural resources and the oil and gas industry. We have so much money. Our Speaker of the House, Dave Phelan, talks about this $1 billion plus not overflow, what's the word? Excess. How can you brag about that when you have teachers who haven't had a raise in a while, retired teachers who are struggling, children who don't get, aren't able to be fed, health care, I mean, you name it. So I'm not looking at a purple or a red or a blue. I'm looking at, hey, Texas, we got all this money that this man up here is controlling, and we're suffering. We have roads that are deteriorating. We have so many needs. We have hungry people. We have people who are looking for a better way of life, that we have access to that. Now, I don't know about in your household, but in my household, When we have excess money in our savings or whatever, and there's a need in our family, in our household, we're going to access that excess. We're going to access that. A balanced budget, well, that's wonderful. You have a balanced budget, but you have people suffering under your leadership. That's not a good look. Oh, Texas has a balanced budget. We've got all this money. I wouldn't even say that to any. I wouldn't stand and pound my chest that would do that. I have all due respect for the position of the Speaker of the House, but I just don't agree with Texas having all this money and we're at the bottom of everything.
Very well spoken. Very well.
Thank you.
So the Democratic Party, how do you think the party can continue to grow on the local level, the state level, and the federal level? What needs to be done to continue the engagement?
It's all about relationships. It's all about connecting with people at their point of need. It's all about being present. It's all about listening and learning and connecting and serving. And that's how we grow. That's how we build. That's how we expand our future.
Here in Jefferson County, Texas, is there active recruitment to get people to become part of the Democratic Party? What does that look like, recruitment efforts?
So I guess I wouldn't think of it in terms of recruitment, but again, building relationships. We try to be, our executive committee and me and other Democrats, try to be present in the community and just listen. Listen. When someone says something that it's about a need, we can talk about what the Biden-Harris administration has done and how that has impacted us down here as it relates to the economy, strengthening the economy. We can talk about listening. It's all about listening. It's not like, hey, come be on our side. We're doing this and we're going to get you that. Now, I know that there has been some efforts on the other side to recruit Democrats with promises of, over here we've got money, over here you'll shine, over here, and if that's your thing, go for it. But we don't actively recruit people. What we do is actively seek out how we can care for people. What do people need? How can we meet that need? If we're not meeting that need, then how can we help meet that need? And that's not, we have to work alongside the other aisle too. We have to be able to work in tandem. So I'm not just saying the Democrats are the savior of the world, but what I'm saying is that I believe that because we have such a broad spectrum of ideals and the freedom to express those ideals and the narrative that we connect with everyone, not when it's just convenient or not when it's gonna just get us votes, but we connect with everyone, that is what it's a party of attraction. It's not a party of recruitment or promotion.
Okay.
It's a party of attraction. And that's been my experience since being chair. And as a chair, I look out into the community and I look at what people are doing and I call them and I'd say, hey, I don't know what your affiliation is, but I want to get to know more about where do you see yourself in leadership? And if they align with the Democratic platform, then I'm ready to mentor them, help them grow, connect them, serve right along with them. I'm not looking for somebody who just talks about that they want to be a political leader, or I don't turn people down who have political aspirations, but on the local level, I look for people who show compassion for the community, who I know they go into the underserved communities and they do things for the underserved community when nobody's looking. That's what I look for in leadership.
And that was actually going to be my next question. What are the characteristics and the traits that you look for? So we have service, we have leadership, we have selflessness. Any others that you'd like to add to that list?
I think a great work ethic, someone who willingness, open-minded, have an open mind. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't get involved in service work to become the first African American female of the Jefferson County Democratic Party. I didn't become a precinct chair to have a title. I got involved to serve. Someone said to me, Ava, you live in precinct 14. There's 2,500 voters, Democrats in that precinct. I might have the numbers wrong, it's been a while. But, and only 200 have voted. And this is the second week of early voting. And my heart started palpitating, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do I do? And they said, go to the headquarters and volunteer. And I came to the headquarters to volunteer, whatever that was, to do. They said, well, we don't have a precinct chair in your precinct. Would you be interested? Learned about it, got involved. And then from there, that's how I got into chair. So it wasn't what I was looking for. And so when I'm thinking about leadership, I'm thinking about people who care, who show love, who reach out, and you don't see them. The people I worry about is that not going to show up and says, well, I want to run, I want to be a leader. Oh. Those are the people that I worry about. I'm like, okay, so.
Which your follow-up question should be why? But
yeah, and why? So, and if they do, come on in. Let's set you up for success. If that is your aspiration, let's set you up for success. Let us walk with you. Articulate where it is you want to go, and why, and how, and what, and let us help you get there.
The Democratic Party is one of the few parties that's able to tout that they have united support across generational lines, meaning we have the young, we have the old, we have the middle age are united within the Democratic Party for the social goals and social issues that you've spoken so passionately about. Why do you think that is? How has the Democratic Party been able to be successful across generational lines?
Well, I don't want to sound redundant, but it's about meeting people's needs. It's about being fair. It's about having a platform that speaks to the everyday human needs.
And going forward, looking into the future of the Democratic Party, how do you feel that younger voters will be able to impact the Democratic Party?
Everyone wants younger voters. Both parties. It's the future that I call the young voters our future now. They're our now future. And we all had a starting point. All those old cats up in Washington that have been up there for a very, very long time, and ladies and gentlemen, and them and they had a starting point. Some of them were 40 years old when they started, some were 30, and now they're 80 and plus, including our wonderful president. So there's a starting point. And I get excited about younger voters. I get excited about young leadership. In fact, when I'm looking in the community, I'm looking for the 40 and under crowd to see what they're doing and where their mindset is. And I mean, we had to start somewhere ourselves. So it's very important to mentor and also listen. I mean, there's so much to learn from the younger voters. The older I get, the more I see how much I don't know, and how much I have to learn. And it's very refreshing that you can learn from those young voices. Sometimes we don't want to hear that because change. Nobody likes change but a wet baby,
Yes.
And even they cry when you're doing
it.
So that change is inevitable, and it is a challenge for all of us, So that's what I think.
Right now, what is the Democratic Party working on right now that will be beneficial, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line?
I tell you, but then I have to bury it. Can't give away all of our
secrets.
Just kidding out there, everybody. I'm not going to bury this beautiful woman.
Thank you. It's been said that educated voters are the best voters. For people who want to get into politics, for, as your sign says, 99% of politics is showing up. The people who want to show up, how can they do that? Where can they go to get information, to be informed, to be educated voters so that they can show up?
Well, I must say that I'm highly impressed by our younger voters. They are informed, they are engaged, they are educated. My concern is for those folks that are not voting, that don't believe it benefits them, that have a lot of different hesitations about coming to vote, whether they were once a convicted felon or their economic situation has them bound and that they can't see beyond their needs or their lack. So my goal is really to help reach those who don't have access to what the educated voters have. So when you look at voting trends, you see who's turning out the vote, turning out to vote, and then you also see those who are not, and you can surmise from their circumstances what that is. So how do we reach the uneducated voter? How do we reach those who say, "Oh, I'm not gonna"? I was one of those people. I don't vote. You know, it doesn't make any sense. They're gonna do what they want to do anyway. And then when the first time I voted, and Al Gore won the popular vote, but he didn't win the election. That really messed me up. I didn't know anything about the Electoral College. So when you're uneducated and you have all of these things, you know, it can be disheartening. Like, why vote? They're going to give it. So kudos to President Biden for getting the popular and the electoral vote. And we're going to do that again. So it's things like that. So it's seeking out those who don't have access or understanding why it is beneficial. A quick story: when we had the 2020 census in the midst of the pandemic, the world was shut down, and our church here in Beaumont received the only grant from the Hogg Foundation, which is a mental health foundation founded in Houston from the legacy of the Hogg family. We received a $55,000 grant to promote the census for areas that are hard to count, because there was over like 5 million children in this Southeast Texas or something. I always get my numbers wrong, so double check those. But a considerable amount of children that did not get counted in the 2010 census. Okay. So this foundation, the Mental Health Foundation, was giving out grants. We received a $55,000 grant, and they tied it into mental health because the census is all about resources.
Right.
So we were able to go out into the community and partner with other organizations to help get the census count up in these communities that are normally undercounted. And so when we trained our census team, what we said to them is, when you walk up to someone's home, observe what's going on. Is there a bike in the yard? Then they have children. Tell them how this benefits them through school lunch programs. If there's an elder, tell them how it helps healthcare. You know, tell them for kids how, build libraries and nutrition. There's just so many benefits. Whatever. Identify what their need might be and tell them why it benefits them. Mm-hmm. We came up and someone was smoking weed one time when we were walking, and they said, "Don't worry about it." I said, we're not here for that. Mm-hmm. What we're here for to tell you about the census and why it's important. So you have to be approachable and not fearful. And so the point of that story is meeting the need. It's all about meeting the need. Like I said, the Democratic Party is a party of attraction. It's not a party of promotion. People are going to be attracted because they're going to feel that we love them, that we care for them. And yes, are we wacky? Are we, do we pull against each other? Yes, what family doesn't? Mm-hmm. What family doesn't have that one cousin or that one aunt or that one uncle that you just want to throw up your hands and, given that's us with our issues. But guess what? We prevail. We prevail. We find the commonality and we prevail. We don't stick to just one myopic viewpoint. And so that's the beauty of the Democratic Party from my perspective and my experience.
If people want more information about the Democratic Party, they want to be more engaged, they want to service, they want to be educated about that party, where can they get that information from?
That was your original question. Okay, so
No, fine.
So great. Well, we do have a Facebook page.
Okay.
It's the letters for the Jefferson County Democratic Party, TX. So it's JCDPTX on Facebook, and then the JCDPTX.com for our website, which we're updating. So don't dog us out when you go there and it's not updated yet. And then our email is jdcptx@gmail.com. Our phone number is 409-313-3366. And let's see what else. We have our location is 2211 Calder in Beaumont, Texas. My cell number is 832-878-6499. Call me. We can text me. We can get connected. You can also go to the Texas Democratic Party website and get information, and they'll link you to our website, and you can get connected that way. Let's see, those are a few of the ways that you can get involved.
And in case you missed that information, I'll make sure and have all of those links in the
Great.
description box below, so you can get that information there. We are coming to an end of a very informative and passionate interview.
Thank you.
So I have a few more questions. 2 questions here. What do you think needs to stay the same about the Democratic Party, and what do you think needs to change about the Democratic Party?
Well, definitely the love and the compassion, the kindness, the openness, the freedom of voice and choice, the freedom to believe and think and feel the way the Constitution has allowed us to, which is why would we need a Constitution to tell us that we can think and feel and be. But I digress. What I would change, we should always be evolving. We should always be growing. We should always be looking for ways to become better at caring for humankind. So I'm sure there's maybe a checklist of some things that may apply, but I think overall the Democratic Party does continue to evolve, continues to listen to the voice of the people, and continue to bridge the gap between party lines and party relationships.
Okay. My final question for you, Ms. Graves, who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
Oh my gosh, there's so many wonderful people. Are you just talking about in Southeast Texas, Beaumont?
Wherever.
Oh, why don't I just send you a list? Because there are
Perfect.
so many dynamic, phenomenal people in Southeast Texas and Beaumont, Port Arthur, Mid-County. I mean, just wonderful people that are just serving the community, being present in unique ways. People that probably no one would ever really know their name or who they are. They're not about fame and fortune, but are very influential, community influence. I can put you together a really superb list of Southeast Texas. I mean, it could keep your show filled for at least 5 years.
Oh, please do. Please do.
I mean, we live in one of the most beautiful areas of Texas, Southeast Texas. All these natural resources here. We are intercoastal railroad. We are I-10 east and west. Everybody has to go through Beaumont. Everybody has to get on I-10. I mean, we're a jewel. We live in a jewel of a community, and we have the legacy of so many wonderful leaders before us, and it's an amazing place to be.
Thank you. Well, I will look forward to that list. And you heard it here, folks. She said she'll keep my show going for 5 years.
And I want to thank you for your platform, and I bid you the richest blessings in the future, and reaching out and doing something as creative as this and as connecting as this, it's so needed.
Thank you so much. I really
you.
appreciate
Yes.
that. And thank you for taking out time to be on the podcast and wanting to see me successful and actually helping me accomplish
Absolutely.
that. So thank you so much.
Ibutu. I am because we are.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode of this podcast with Miss Ava Graves. You can find this podcast and all of my others on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.
Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry Consulting.